think relates to what side yet.
Got it going? Okay. All right. Welcome to the March Air Reserve Base Aero Club for May 2016. Yeah, already. For us older guys, it's way too far. For you young guys, wow, yeah, you're probably hard to wait. Okay, this is, my name's Roger Mann, and the club manager's Bob Pierce. The chief pilot is John Law, which is sitting right there. And one of the oldest members in the club is walking back there disrupting everybody, Malcolm. Malcolm Campbell is a...
I stayed at the Holiday Inn last night.
Oh, okay.
Did you have any French fries?
Yeah, Malcolm is a helicopter pilot, so, you know, he's...
I'm sorry, sir, say again, sir?
Helicopter pilots, they're the best.
If you get a Hubschrauber pillow. Sure,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we got another one, too.
That means he doesn't eat French fries.
Yep.
Yeah, not
there you go.
fries. Yeah, they're alcoholic, you know.
All right. So what we usually do on these safety meetings that we try to, I follow kind of a pattern, and we just start out introducing some new people, and what I'm going to do is ask for those people who I asked earlier. There's a warning that I was going to make you stand up and introduce yourself. So. Let's have some of our new people stand up.
We need the major back.
Come on. You got?
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah. Introduce yourself.
Don Buckley, I joined 2 weeks ago and I'm quitting this Friday. I'm retired.
Yeah, he's
You don't call
retired.
me anymore, so you're out of the loop.
Sounds serious.
Okay, my name is Randy Zahn. I just joined the Aero Club last week or week before. Background Army aviator, flew Cobras in Vietnam, and I've been
You're the man.
I did it. I've been retired from the Army, Master Army aviator, been flying commercially for 40 plus years. Just got laid off from my last job in Alaska. In January, I'm going for another interview tomorrow, so it's kind of in my blood. I've got a little over 15,000 hours, of which 14,500 of them are in helicopters, and I'm commercial, fixed-wing, airplane, multi-engine, single-engine, land and sea for both. Flown all over the world, 50 different countries, about 45 different aircraft. And last November, I landed in the last 2 states that I hadn't landed in before. I've now flown in all 50 states as well. So I'm. Is that good?
Yeah.
All 50 states?
I don't know what else to say. I'm still fine, still love it. It's kind of in my blood, it's in my DNA. And if anybody's interested, I wrote a book about my tour in Vietnam that's out there on Amazon. So if anybody wants to read it, it's called Snake Pilot.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, back in the back row. Major.
Well, I was getting there. Bob, don't, you know, just don't. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Major Cicero, did you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Major Rico Cicero. I am the Port Support Squadron Commander here. And as you probably know, I have basic responsibility to make sure that the Aero Club is successful, and we provide services to you that you all need to have a successful club. So I've been working in conjunction very closely with Mr. Pierce. I want to also publicly thank him for his hard work in making sure that the program is successful. So thanks, Bob. Appreciate all your hard work. So again, I'm here for you. If at any time you guys have any questions for me or anything I can personally do to assist you to make the experience of the club better, please, I welcome that feedback. So and I appreciate you letting me sit in on it. So, thank you.
He's our boss, incidentally,
Yeah.
just to let you
And
know.
just some kudos, if it wasn't for Major Cicero, 555 would not be flying today. So it was through him that he managed to talk to staff and get support from the base to get that thing fixed, so. Major, thanks.
And Bill, and Bill.
No,
And Bill, yes, most definitely. Okay, okay, and, let's see, Bill, do you have anything to say, from wing safety? Okay, Bill Edelman's a wing safety officer, and, he's here to watch us, and then we've got a newer guy from maintenance, who's representing maintenance over here. And can you introduce yourself since you're new to us here?
I'm Sergeant Titler, part of the active unit here at 912th ARS. Been in maintenance for over 8 years, just recently moved to quality assurance. I guess I'm here as a maintenance liaison, so if you guys have any questions on how Air Force does it, give us a call on the quality assurance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, he thinks he might get tagged with it, so he might see his face more often. Okay, let's see, do we have anybody else? Yes.
Brian, I'm replacing Dave Murphy, air traffic.
All right.
Any
Oh,
questions?
boy,
Yeah,
all
I know,
right.
big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and you, boy, you better watch it from us, because we'll probably attack you and everything else.
Murphy's in Laughlin by now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Lucky stiff.
Uh, Okay, anybody else? Okay. We also talk about new pilot ratings and new pilots, and this includes military, all the way around, or commercial. If you're a commercial pilot, anything, anybody. Has anybody gotten a rating recently, or got violated by the FAA? Any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. How about solos? Anybody soloed recently? I don't know, John. There hasn't been a whole lot, has there? Not recently.
Not recently, no.
Yeah, but we got some guys here that, has anybody gotten checked out just recently? Colonel, didn't you just get, have you let him go yet? You did, yeah, okay, all
Well, he
right.
wants to go to Catalina, so.
He wants to go to Catalina, yeah, spend money, yeah. Okay, all right. The next thing we talk about is experiences, and this is where you get to tell a little bit of your own story of something that might be exciting or not exciting, you know? It could be anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be related to safety, but it helps. I know that, yeah.
So
Christopher.
I have one, and it's not very exciting, but so I took a break after flying for a while for about, I haven't flown for like 4 to 5 years, so I rejoined the club. I took a trip out to Laughlin, and I learned about electronic flight bags. So it's a whole new thing. I'm used to paper. So now I got my iPad, and I like it. I'm trying to embrace this. And as I'm going out, I'm flying to the east. The sun's coming in, right, early morning, and my iPad's on my knee. So I look down at my iPad, and I still have a backup with my normal nav, so I'm tracking a radio. But all of a sudden I look down and it goes, overheating. And it turned off.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I'm sure it's a normal thing for a lot of us that do that, but for me, going to the electronic flight bag world, it was like, wow, that was kind of a different thing. So I held it up to the vent, it cooled down, it worked again. It was uneventful, but it was just interesting.
You had to do that pilot stuff, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, a little bit, but.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob brought that up too, because it happened to him too.
I lost full screen.
Yeah, he lost, your screen or something like that, yeah.
I think it just shows the importance of having a backup like paper, another phone, another pad, which is normal, and you read all about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's real, and don't sit there and leave it in your lap where it's in the sun, because it just overheats.
Yeah. And I have read several articles on it as safety officer about that happening. And some of the organizations, some of the people that have airplanes, they actually have some rules about that too. So it's something that you might want to keep in the back of your mind when you're carrying around, something like that. Don't depend totally upon that. Oh my goodness, Ward Massey, wow. Yeah, you actually showed up. Huh? Okay. Anybody else that has anything to share? Okay. Oh, that's actually not supposed to be chief pilot, but anyhow, you can stand up and talk if you want.
I'll let Bob.
Oh, okay. Actually, it's supposed to be Bob that's gonna talk. And then what we're gonna do is cover Know Your SOPs, which is just a paragraph by paragraph little thing that I cover for as we go through the whole SOP. And we go to the end, and then we start all over again from the beginning and just go right through. Everybody knows that they're supposed to be reading the SOPs anyhow. That little, for those of you, if you remember, there was that one little agreement letter that you signed, which it says in there that you would agree to pay your dues, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Well, one of the little things that's in there says that you will read the SOPs also. This way, at least you get through them all eventually. It takes a while, but I suggest that you don't wait for me. Read it on your own. Okay, and then we're going to talk about what is a 781. Actually, David G., our wonderful mechanic, is going to talk about that a little bit, along with me. Okay, now we got to put up with the Aero Club manager for a little bit. And we'll have Bob stand up. And
Stand up.
you want me to tell you when it's time to...
Yeah, about 30 minutes now.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna need a podium here. I want to review some of the things that took place at the conference last month at Randolph. A lot of talk about improvements within the Aero clubs, looking at inputs for the Aero clubs to succeed, and inputs from the members of what this club here can do in the future. So what I'm looking at is if you can see ideas that we need to change on to try and drive more people in for training to improve our income, I'm open to your suggestions, and we can sit down with another group and then finalize what we'd like to do within the Aero Club. I have ideas, Roger has ideas, but a lot of ideas come from each and every one that sits in the audience, and I think that's most important. There's a few things I want to cover, just what's pertaining to us presently. And I want to cover maintenance. So let's review the aircraft. 15 Foxtrot went in this morning for a PDOT static certification, and we found out there were 2 small leaks there. They finally found where the leaks were, but the altimeter has to be replaced. So we'll be doing the altimeter replacement, David, and we'll send it back to Advantage for the certification and get that done. So 15 Foxtrot is basically back here. He was sitting out there this morning since 11 o'clock, and he got back here about 5.
No IFR.
Pardon?
No IFR in that aircraft until it's...
No, that's right. And there'll be no night flights until we get that changed out. We'll put that on order. We'll get that started tomorrow for the altimeter. Some of the things that the other clubs are doing, that they're buying new equipment so they can do depreciation. But in some cases, that's under $1,000, so it doesn't help us out, excuse me, much in regards to our bottom line. 03 November goes in the morning. Hey, welcome, George. Come on in. 03 goes back in, out this, in tomorrow. Excuse me, tomorrow morning. 03 goes to avionics at Chino again for its PDOT static. Followed by that will be 555, and then when 57 comes out of maintenance, we'll send 57 in. So it looks like right now for this month we're going to end up with 4 PDOT static checks, which is not very good because everything comes due at once. In 2 years from now, we're going to have to try manipulating around to see if we can keep them in service without taking them out of service and have everything done all at once.
2 years from now, we ought to just look for somebody that's going to watch like big money and do 5 of them all at one time.
Well, I got that, and the individuals that Bill used refused to even give me an estimate. I've gone back 3 times. I just gave up on them. I'm sorry.
We got 2 years to find something.
He wants to charge us mileage and everything else because we're Air Force, I think. The 182 is still doing very well, and I'm going to start in on the T-34s. In our discussion this evening over dinner, we're looking at changing out the prop governor on 234 Whiskey Papa. We have one that's been overhauled, and we're going to see if that makes the correction in regards to the prop wanting to wander a little bit in RPM. 555 is flying much better than what it's done since we had about 120 hours plus in regards to maintenance from this base, building up equipment and what Bill's put in and a lot of other people putting into 555 after the gear folded. I want to take and just remind the pilots that don't forget we got a handle that sits over there on the right hand side. And if we have an unsafe gear indication, just remember the tower doesn't know whether it's up, down, sideways, or what the heck they're looking at. They haven't the slightest idea. So don't forget, we talked about this in our ground training program, and that is disengage, take the crank, and see if you can get another green by cranking the handle. If it's already in a locked position, and I say locked, it's not going to crank any more than a quarter of a turn, we know that the gear is down and locked, even though the indicator may give us an unsafe, which more than likely then 99% of the time is going to be the sensor system running from the gear to the indicator. Most of the time we find that it's the little rubber boot wears out on the top of the plate, and all we have to do is readjust that and we get a green indication of down and locked. So 5.7 right now is still an annual. We've got some rudder issues that we're taking place of. We've replaced the cables. Bill and David and Jim have all been working on that airplane. We've replaced all the rudder cables on that with new cables to put it back into service. We think that we're going to have a much better airplane when we're done out of it, and the key right now is to ensure that the airplanes are mechanically sound and that we stop putting nickel and dime in regards to trying to get them fixed as we've done in the past. And we've been pushing them only because we've had only 1 or 2 of the T-34s in operation. So right now, when that comes out, we'll have 3, and then the next one is going to be the engine. We've already got that contract sitting at Randolph, trying to get that contract done. We'll get the engine for 5.6 completed since we have the cylinders already overhauled and have one stop. Put the engine together, put it on a test stand, install it, and we'll bring that one up. We talked about taking the engine that we got from Parks, putting that into 5.3, and eventually we'll have all 5 aircraft up in operation for 4-man formation flights, which should bring in more income in regards to the Aero Club. So I think we're on the right track. It's been a very slow process in the last 2 and 3 years. We've struggled in the past, and I think we're kind of over the hump. We're on a downhill side right now, and I'm very positive that we'll have a decent Aero Club by the end of the year. So just give me some help here. I want to talk about cleaning of wings, struts, and the nose and the windscreen. Whether we're a student or whether we're a seasoned aviator that we've been in the Aero Club a number of years, don't forget, we're a club, and it's up our responsibility to make sure that we get all the bugs off the wings and the windshield clean for the next individual. We expect a clean airplane when we climb into it, so why shouldn't you clean that airplane that you got dirty and make it clean for the individual that's going to take it after you? And we don't use Windex. That's the blue stuff. We're using Pledge, concentrate, and water. We've been using it for years. I'm down to my last gallon and a half on that. I'm not sure what we're going to use thereafter. Johnson & Johnson is not producing that product anymore, and it's a neutral product in regards to stopping any kind of corrosion, or causing corrosion, I should say. And it's good for the canopies. 29 Foxtrot.
Bob,
20, yes.
one question on that. The only thing that would be nice if it was really clear what products we use for the windscreen and for like the belly or the wings.
Same product. We don't do anything but Pledge and water.
Okay, as long as it's in like the bin outside or in the aircraft and clearly marked and labeled exactly what it is.
We
and
have a
also the
jug.
cost of it.
Normally the refill jug is always there. And when you go through your training, then the flight instructor should have instructed you to that. We'll push on that a little bit to review that. But there's always a gallon jug sitting in there, and there's always in the aircraft a sprayer. Now some of the bottles die after about 3 to 4 months, and if they do, bring them in, we'll give you a new bottle, and I'll put the new bottle back in the aircraft. So if you see it's empty, look for the gallon jug. That's the only thing that's going to be in that yellow locker out there on the flight line.
Thanks.
Okay, help you out a little bit?
Yep.
Okay. And if you have an issue, come call me. Give us a call, we'll take care of it. 29 Foxtrot, 27 hours, according to the computer database, and 0 oil. Impossible. Totally impossible. I can see an airplane maybe running 6 to 8 hours, especially in a flight training program where you're doing takeoff and landings, maybe using a quart of oil. But it's got to burn something, and we're not marking it down. And today I found an empty container sitting in the box in the back of it. So someone added a quart of oil, but didn't mark it down. So we can't keep our cost, we can't keep a good handle of our cost if we don't take and mark down what we're putting in the aircraft and what is being used. We see the oil dissipating. Where's it going? And we should be able to charge that to the aircraft itself. So help us out again in regards to oil usage. If you're doing a pre-flight and you see scuffed tires or a little flat spot, be sure and just say, check flat spot on such and such tire. Left main, right main, nose gear. We understand that in training we have a tendency to be a little harder on tires. We are using retreads, and we're using the Monster tire, which has 11/32 of rubber versus the 7/32 of rubber. And we're getting a good price on those through Desser out of Montebello, and they've been a pretty decent tire for us. We did have some issues with some of the inner tubes. They were failing. I made a note to those people about that, and I guess we could have shipped them back, and I thought they were just scrubbed because they were used. But we've had 2 of those tires, correct me if I'm wrong, David, 2 of those tires with a fairly new inner tube placed in the tire actually split inside, and that's just due to manufacturing. Engine operation. This goes for every aircraft we have, and especially the T-34s. Yes, the book calls for 2,600 for takeoff and climb, but why should we run at 2,600, which is max RPM, in a T-34 with an engine that was built in 1950 when we're trying to save our assets? If you're by yourself, bring it back to 2,550, bring it back to 2,500, and just work for speed. Yes, your climb speed is going to be a little bit slower in the vertical aspect, but you're going to be saving our engines and you're going to be saving our assets. And all I ask you to do is consider the engine operation. If we're in a T-41, we have limits there. It's fixed pitch. But try and save our assets. I want to cover some of the things here, and I said I was going to take a little bit longer than normal, so you just have to bear with me. But I want to cover some of the things that were discussed in regards to my conference. ADSB, I believe it's Apollo. They make the Stratus 2, has a ADSB out system with the antenna for less than $3,000. And I figure that's a decent system. We've been looking at plug and plays for the Bendix King. That's $2,700 plus another $1,500 for the GPS plus the installation. So it's pushing us back up to about $4,000 or more for the installation. Dover has spent $8,000 per aircraft, but they're using a GPS system and a glass cockpit for their installations on all their ADSBs. So they're using an in and out system. I think we're just going to stay with the out only, and that will take care of us for the year 2020. One of the problems we're having today is that there's not enough units. The Air Force just published, along with some other military services, they're looking at $5.3 billion to take and improve and install the ADSB in all military aircraft. And there's nothing on the market for them. The FAA hasn't even started on a contract for their airplanes. It seems like the FAA is putting down on general aviation, which includes us, to get this done by 2020, but everybody else is saying, well, we're just going to take care of it whenever it happens. So look for more changes in the future for that. FAA requirements for new students as of April 1. Don't forget, if you know of an individual, he has to go to the FAA first, fill out the forms. The FAA gives you the green card like your pilot license. And after that's been approved, they've been vetted by the FAA through security. Then you get to go to your doctor and fill out another form on the FAA form for that, and now you get your medical certificate for your license to fly. It's going to be a very slow process. The problem we have is that what the East Coast says and what the West Coast says are two different things in regards to what the rules or regulations are, because the FAA has now set June 15th is when they're going to come out with written regulations on how this is going to operate. So none of the FBOs or none of the service groups within the FAA know what the heck's going on. Totally stupid in my report. There's some other words that's stronger than that. I want to talk about safety a little bit. Total assets for the all Aero clubs. There are the total assets for the Aero clubs is basically the assets are over $10 million. That's a lot of money for just airplanes, general aviation aircraft, when you start looking at it. 155 aircraft within the Aero Club system. There's one Aero Club that's had 2 incidences and 1 accident because the pilot landed long on an island out of the Far East and thought he was going to run off the runway, so he turned it into a ditch. He had over 500 feet to go before he gets come to the end of the runway. It's not using their head. That Aero Club, as rumored right now, is going to be shut down. We have to be very cognizant of what we're doing here to save our assets again. I'm very proud of this Aero Club and what Fred did in the past in regards to our safety record. We just got another safety award for 2015, and it's up to you. It's you people that made that award available to the Aero Club, and I thank you, each and every one of you, for contributing to that factor. For insurance, the cost in 2015, they paid out $215,000 for hull insurance due to accidents, and the income for the premiums was $215,000, almost a push. But that value is beginning to decrease each year in regards to what they're spending just because of incidences or accidents. The 2 incidents in the Far East were Liberty aircraft, where they're like an LSA, and they were both prop strikes, excluding the 172 that ended up in the ditch. So the key to the safety is life and limb for liability and assets for the hull insurance. They've got to keep the insurance rates down. And right now, our insurance rates for the aircraft for a 2-seater or per year are $2,518. For 3 seats or more, it's $37.77. Those are our costs, and those have been holding pretty strong for about the last 6 years because everybody's really working to try and keep our insurance rates down by looking at safety. So, again, it's up to our membership to try and keep this club going. I only ask that each of you submit what you think is required, whether we use Facebook or anything else in regards to bringing in more members and keeping us safe. Just remember, 47% of the users use Facebook. There's 4.5 billion individuals that use the likes of that in a daily use. So for bringing in memberships, our Facebook, which was set up by Ken Benner, has been doing this very well. But again, a lot of it is word of mouth for those individuals who are coming in or they're driving by. 75% of Facebook revenue comes from mobile advertising. That's a pretty large percentage of income. And if we could just tag into that, if somebody had ideas on how we could do that, I'm really open to it. Because if we could tag into that and bring in more members in this club, we'd be very successful. As far as tweets are concerned, 284 million users. There's 5 million users a day for just tweets. And on Google, 363 million users. There's 1 billion hits and over 5 billion per day just on Google. So those are just some of the statistics that came about talking in regards to Aero clubs and all the other service clubs that were at this conference. We had 30 people from LA, Air Force Los Angeles, to March to Hanscom in Massachusetts, Albuquerque, and it was a very good conference. So, are there any questions that someone may have in regards to what I've talked about in a hurry here? I didn't even cover half of it, but I just want to give you some thinking ability. I'm not degrading you, but I just want you to think about some things to help us out here, Roger and I, and Major Cicero to try and keep this club in operation and be successful as it's been in the last, how many years, Fred? 30, 35, 40 years? In fact, we have people on this base that have been here for over 20 years and didn't even know that we existed. That's pretty pathetic, if you think about it. And they drive by every day, headed down the flight lines. So anyway, hey, thanks for the time.
How many people know we have a Facebook page? Yeah, we do have one. Yeah. Why it doesn't work, I have no idea.
We're all too old and none of us are on Facebook.
Well, that could be. I just know that it's hard as heck to get to it, and I don't know why. It said that it was set up by a guy that was up in Outdoor Rec. He's the one that set the thing up. And for some reason, it goes to the page that I made up as being the personal one, because you have to have a personal account in order to have a business account. Well, I set up the business account, or our personal account, and then the business one. And for some reason, when people Google it, it goes right to the personal account. And I have no idea why. And it doesn't go to the one that was supposed to be our business one, that has all the advertisement. When Joan got her private pilot's license, there was a big picture of her in that. There was all kinds of stuff. I have no idea why it doesn't work, because I don't know how to use it that well. If some of you guys do, it would sure be nice to be able to figure out why it doesn't work. How come nobody can get to it? I've had people literally call me up and says, you know, I've been trying to find it and I can't find it. And I go, well, wow, really? Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with that.
I just tried it and it came up.
Yeah, but which one? There should be a picture
Marshall
there.
Reserve Base Aero Club.
Yeah, there should be one in there that has a picture of Joan, Bill's wife on there with John. And
There it is.
yeah, well, how come people aren't finding it then? I've had people tell me they cannot find it, including the previous commander. He tried to find it and he couldn't find it. And I go, I don't know why. Why is it that nobody can find it? I don't know what's going on with it. Now, obviously, you just found it. So, I don't know. We do have a Facebook page. I kind of basically gave up putting things in it because nobody was looking at it. And when I look at the hits, you know, that go on that page, it's not very many at all. Hardly anybody looks at it. So anyhow, enough said for that. If anybody has anything to talk about on that, well, maybe we can do it after the meeting. Okay, thanks, Bob, for getting up here. We're going to quickly try to use up the rest of the time real quick. I promise. I really do. Yeah, so we're going to try to get out of here by 8. Okay. All right, I promised you, as I told you, I run over the SOPs a little bit, just real quick, paragraph by paragraph. Right now we're in chapter 3, which is operational restrictions and local area procedures. Everybody here should know that you got to put in a flight plan no matter what, whether it be IFR, VFR, or whatever. That's something that Air Force has always mandated. Even when I was in the Vandenberg Air Force Base Aero Club clear back in 1906, back in those days, they required to have the exact same form that we fill out here. It's always been a requirement by Air Force. Most of you guys have run into a problem over the period of years where you file a flight plan here and you assume that that flight plan is filed with the FAA. Well, not necessarily. What happens is that you get to your destination if you're going someplace and you end up saying that you're canceling or closing your flight plan, and ATC comes back and says, we have no idea who you are and never heard of you. and then you go into like a restaurant to go eat or something like that, about 20 minutes later or 30 minutes later, and in comes the FBO, local FBO, saying that FAA is looking for you. And so, with long meetings and having to sit around tables with ATC locally here, basically we found out that the system doesn't talk to each other. It's the Air Force flight plan system is in BFR doesn't necessarily talk to each other. And so basically what we've been telling pilots, if you're going on a long distance flight like that, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can go in and cancel the flight plan even though they may not know who you are, but you want to do it by radio so that it gets on their tapes that you did it. And then if somebody comes in and tries to say you didn't, well, you got it recorded because you did call it in. The other thing to do is just open a flight plan while you're flying to point B anyhow. You can do flight following. You can do any of those things, but it doesn't happen all the time. It's not something that's a regular thing, but every once in a great while, somebody will come back and said, I tried to close my flight plan and they didn't know who I was, and then somebody came in and said they're looking for me. It's something that we're just going to have to live with, basically. But if you're flying IFR, then it should work. It doesn't matter because, see, the problem is they don't know how to handle VFR traffic, really. They know how to do IFR because Air Force does all IFR flight planning. And so they know how to deal with that. But if you do VFR, they're kind of, they don't really know what to do with it. If you get a person down there that knows what's going on, then it's no problem. But every once in a while you get a person down there at base ops that's kind of shady about it. Like I said, if you do IFR, it should be no problem whatsoever because they know how to do that. So.
Roger, what I find is just go ahead and call FAA, close it out with them, call base ops, check with them. That gives them a hit to put it in if you close it out, then you're covered.
Yeah, that's another reason why you put your phone number on the flight plan. Remember, they've got a space there where you put your own private phone. That's just in case they try to get a hold of you. But like David says, if I were you, I'd just call back here and just tell them, hey,
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here. So.
I even had a local flight with John, and they called us, or they called me. They go, "Where are you at?"
Yeah.
We landed an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, the tower said you never landed." Oh, the aircraft's on the ramp.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's something that goes, that happens. Fortunately, it doesn't happen a whole lot, but every once in a great while it will, and it's just a confusion that we Bob and I have worked with it. We've gone down and talked to him several times, about it, and
There's been a lot of changes within the operations department. A lot of people have left, and a lot of new people are there. In regards to what took place with you, yeah. In some cases, all they do is say aircraft departed. They've called me 3 times in one night. I called in at the airport when I landed. They called me at the house. I talked to them then. I'm at a restaurant eating dinner. An hour and a half later, they called me and said, you're the 3rd phone call. And the guy said, oh, sorry about that, and hung up. The problem is that the tower is not notifying the people down below at the desk, and the desk is looking at a time frame on their sheet, and they make the phone call to whatever they have down below. Because all they do is when it's filed down below at the desk is they call the tower and say, this aircraft is cleared to leave the airport. That's the issue. So when you call in 515 Foxtrot or 555 ZZ or a 94986 to 182, all they're doing is telling them that they have a flight plan down below, and that the tower has the option of releasing you and allowing you to taxi from the ramp. And it's that communication loss that's taken place. Maybe we ought to have, I should say we need to go back down and talk to the people back at operations, see if we can get a little better communication between the two units.
You're talking about here, or you're talking about civilian airfield?
No, here.
Because, you know, for us, the technique is when we land, you tell tower that you call in, you gotta make a gear down call. Our call is gear down, terminate. You get a heads up, and that kind of keys them, we're terminating, close up the flight plan. We'll notify base ops to terminate. It's a technique.
Bob, is our procedure. What we'll do is base ops, you're correct, you'll call base ops will call the tower and say, hey, we have a VFR flight plan. We'll write down the call sign. Aircraft will call for taxi, we'll taxi them out. When they depart, our procedure is, we call base ops and say departure. 555 Zulu at 17. Put a check mark there. That shows that base ops has it. When you land, when 555 Zulu lands, we mark the time, and we call them and say 555 Zulu landed at blah, blah. So base ops always has those times.
Somewhere along the line, it's getting lost though. It doesn't happen all the time. That percentage is probably 3-5%. But
Yeah, rarely
It
does
happens.
it, but every once in a while it does. I've had them call me up, if base ops call me up at the office, says, did 03 November get down? Says, yeah,
The way to
yeah.
fix this is
Yeah.
to document this. If you have this kind of problems, you're gonna use Sim as your rep, it's fine, you can use, or me. Whatever documentation you wanna give me, and I can follow up on it. We see there's a trend there, if there's a problem. But that's the biggest thing I can tell people, from the safety side, I don't fix things. I figured out when there's a problem, and I find the right people to fix it kind of thing. But I can't do nothing about it from a safety perspective unless I know about it. So the biggest thing I ask from you people is whenever you have a problem or see this incident or something dangerous, and any of any of the kind of formats or information like that, get it to me somehow. And it's usually to your safety staff in the Aero Club, and they'll forward it to me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Get
ju-
back to the office if you have that issue, and we'll start documenting, like you say. We'll keep a note, or I'll just send you an email, and you can do what you want with it. I'll get your email too.
Yeah, usually I try to get you into it, Bill, but, in something like this for the transit flight plans, that was never really a safety
It's
issue.
like a hazard, necessary traffic. If you have a
Yeah.
problem with ATC,
Yeah.
close call, you're not getting a service, whatever it is, you're not getting anybody in trouble. We
Oh,
just
no,
document what
no.
it is, and we can follow up, see if
Yeah.
there's a broken process somewhere, and we fix it.
Yeah.
It would be with ATC, or broken airplane, or
Yeah.
the weather, or whatever it is, just document, let us know about it. We look for trend information, if nothing else.
Yeah.
If there's something we can look at, we follow up and see if we can fix it, make
Yeah.
things easier.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? Okay, I think we covered that. Okay, real quick, what we're gonna talk about, David G. is going to come up here and help me a little bit on this. What do I do when I wanna write up a maintenance problem? Okay, David. David is our maintenance person, and he is a person who you want to be friends with. You don't want him to be your enemy, okay? Because he's the one that will touch your airplane in places that you might find out when you're up in the air that, oh my goodness, David has been working on this airplane, so.
Find my wrenches or anything, let me know, will you?
Yeah. What we're running over real quick to help David out, okay, is the 781. Yeah, you can see it up there, can't see it here. But that's a 781, that's what's in the book. And by the way, if it's getting low, please let me know so I can print out more. We do have a file down there that does have some extra ones. But this is what it looks like. Most of you who've done a lot of flying with us know what it looks like. And but there's several ways, there's some little minor things that have not been happening, and I have a few of them up here. Let me show up here. Okay, that's just, yep, that's just one square of that sheet I showed you.
Remember, on one square, we only put one discrepancy in each block. You never put more than one because I can't sign them off. Fix, 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 fix. Put one discrepancy in each box and I can do the corrective action. Your symbols are always going to be either diagonal or a red X. The diagonal just means it's a problem there, to note it that we can fix it as time comes. The red X is grounding the airplane, and that's basically up to, your the book itself, what it says, what's grounding, or the possibility of a pilot, what your capabilities are. But you don't want to ground it for somebody else if you just don't want to fly it. The main thing is get the date in there and, the person that entered it in the discrepancy. Try to do the best you can in the discrepancy to give me as much information as possible. It helps out a whole bunch, whether not just airplane broke or won't transmit or something. Anything more, the most you can give me, the best, works out real good.
Yeah, this is like that one. I mean, that doesn't do anything, David comes in early in the morning, enough as it is, and he's half asleep, and he looks at that and goes, aircraft broke. Okay. Also, we don't really want that either. This guy is given way too much information. I mean, he's even telling, he's afraid he's going to run out of gas between Lake Matthews and the base here. And he's telling everything. You don't need to know all that stuff, Now, this is a good write-up. That write-up right there, he was concise, to the point. He put the date up there, his name down at the bottom, and his club number. It says in there employee number. If you could put the club number in there, that would sure help, especially my end of it. And this guy just happened to be he's a retired F-16 crew chief. So that's why he does such good write-ups. He knows exactly what to put in there. But see how concise he was? He was to the point. But he gave enough information so that David could sit there and read that and go, oh, okay, I know exactly what to do or where to go. So that's a fairly good one.
And the main thing, there's a lot of stuff on that.
Yeah,
Go back to that. There's a lot of stuff on here we don't use. The fall code, the work unit code over here. We don't have a job control number. All we need is a symbol. And the dash, the red dash, that's just for inspection. We very seldom use that because we know when our inspections come in by the computer. Need a date discovered code, and just down here, the discrepancy there, and we'll take care of the rest of this carried forward and all that. Now, at the top of the page on the 781, do we have the old 781 in there? I'll make this as quick as possible.
Not the
While we're
older
looking,
one,
the whole
but
page.
Oh,
top
the whole,
of page,
the other one.
While we're talking, also, I got this here. This is came out of 69 Romeo. We had troubles getting it started out there, keeping it running on the hammerhead. John was having problems, so we brought it back and tried to figure out what was wrong. We figured out that was the gas and that's the water. So that was one of the problems from that came out of the carburetor, the tank, and the fuel filter. From sitting in the rain for a couple of months and the fuel cap leaking or whatever, the carburetor is pretty rusted out. I'm surprised you got it going at all. But that's perfect instance of make sure you drain your sumps and your fuel bowl.
Okay, the only one's I don't know why the full one is not popping up, but
Okay, this on the top of the page here, if you notice, on most of ours, we have the start date. Whenever I put this old form in, that's the start date, say January 1st of 16. And it goes to whenever we pull these forms out. Page 1 of, could be 1 of 16 through the year, however long I pull this out every annual. But it's page 1, and then the next page you have, if you start another page, it'll be page 2 of whatever it is when we end up at the end. But I get a lot of, changing the dates on the front, so I never know when they started. And I'll have 3 or 4 different dates on pages to start with. That's the starting of the first page 1. It's always page 1, and then we'll close it out at the end of the year whenever we take it out.
People in the corrective action date that write up the discrepancy in the corrective action too.
Yeah, this is just mainly for the maintenance guys clearing the discrepancy.
They put in discrepancies on they just
Oh,
go
yeah.
down the end, then they start the next row and put in new discrepancies.
we
Well,
had
to me, that means it's corrected for me. I don't have to do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we had one person write the discrepancy on the right-hand side, and you're not to do that. That's for David only.
And one other thing I was thinking about, we've been having a little bit of trouble with batteries being left on. People walking off, and it's happened quite a few times. What I've been doing on my aircraft, my brother and myself, we've been doing a thing. We leave the beacon switch on. And when you're walking away from the airplane, you look back and say, oh, my dumb ass, I left the master switch on because the beacon's still going. And that'll give you a hint to go back out and, turn the battery switch off. Also, we have IFR aircraft out there, 15 Foxtrot and 69 Romeo. I don't even think that's certified, but
No.
15 Foxtrot is an IFR aircraft. You also got to remember, we have no pitot heat on that aircraft. That aircraft is not really good for any kind of icing conditions. The only one that's really good for strictly IFR under icing conditions would be The 182 and the 2C models, they have pitot heat on those. And that's about the only ones. And I'm sorry, I kind of got off the subject, but
No, that's
just a
fine.
couple things that bother
That's
me.
what I need for you to do. Yeah, get up here and tell your side of the story. Because everybody else blames you for everything, you might as well defend yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the things I put, and I added this up there, if you have any doubts about writing up anything, you know, then leave a note for me or for David, or and some of you actually have David's phone number.
Yeah, I don't mind answering a couple questions. I charge Bob, any no, I don't.
Yeah.
Give him a day off.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that are really obvious, like, you know, if you blew a tire out or an instrument that fails as per 91 205, there is a list of what you have to have in that airplane, a minimum equipment list. And if any of that stuff fails, then obviously you ground the airplane. But there are some things that do happen that you don't, you know, a lot of people don't. I've seen people ground the airplane because the VOR didn't work. Well, wait a minute, what? That has nothing to do with flying that airplane safely whatsoever. Now, if you're flying IFR, yeah, that's a showstopper. But for another guy who's just flying the airplane around the pattern for a currency, a failed VOR is not going to have anything to do with what he's doing.
If you feel that aircraft is grounded with the red X, that means it's a safety of flight. Someone can get hurt in the air, or somebody can get hurt on the ground, and that's when it should be grounded. And then we'll determine, you know, between safety and us, we'll say, okay, that's grounded aircraft. But if you feel it should be grounded, don't let nobody else fly it. It's better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. Some people have called me, and you know, it was during the weekend, but you know what? They asked me the question, you know, should I ground the airplane or not? And that's something that, you know, David here will answer that question, or Bob. And if you have doubts, if you can't get a hold of us for whatever reason, then at the very least, leave a note on my desk or on the keyboard, or make sure you have put some kind of a note so that the next pilot, if there's somebody flying that airplane, to let them know what the problem is. Hey, the VOR failed, so that person at least knows that happened. You know, because it's once you sit there, and I've had, like I said, I had some people ground the airplane a couple of years ago now, it was really ridiculous, and somebody came out to fly it the next day and ended up not flying the thing because it's been grounded.
And each pilot has their own capabilities, what they're capable of doing, but, you know, think of the other pilots too. But, you know, we got a lot of good knowledge out there. If you have any problems, you know, questions, you know, Bill's out there, my brother's out there, you know, Fred's out there, myself. Go ahead and ask them if you have any questions. There's no doubt they've got the knowledge and the background on it, and I'm more than happy to help you out. And any questions for me that anybody wants? Go ahead, Chris.
Checking the aircraft.
I'll get the interphone set for it, fixed for you.
So checking the aircraft and ask for discrepancies. Are we utilizing that as far as inputting that when you do your log?
Well, you know, that varies. Sometimes they're in their logs, sometimes they're not. When I go to correct them, I go, well, they're on the paper, but they're not in the computer. You know.
So should we focus, I mean, obviously the 781 in the forms is vital.
Yeah, it is.
But
Well, also in the computer, it's for historical records. We can go
they're
back.
both vital.
They are both vital for historical records, so we can go back and say, why did the generator go out? When was the last time it was changed? You know, we have it in there, you know, listed and all that. But for screws, you know, if you guys get screws, you know, that you find missing, you know, I know. Go ahead.
In the eyes of the FAA, the pilot is unqualified to determine if the aircraft is airworthy or not. The only person that can make that determination is an A&P.
Right.
So the only thing I can do is write it up.
Right.
I can't put a dash or an X on it
That's wrong. Bull crap.
because I'm not smart enough to know what it is.
You can.
So once an item is written up,
I have to make the
in
difference.
the eyes of the FAA, it can't be flown until an A&P has
Oh, absolutely. Once it's written up, you're absolutely right. Once it's written up.
viable in that condition and makes an entry that says this condition is deferred and will be repaired later, or puts a red X on it.
The red X can go in there anytime. I can either sign it off, but nobody's going to fly until it. If
So
someone
all
feels
I'm
it's red
saying
X,
is
You're right. But you can write a Red X on that airplane too. You can write it up as a Red X. I have to sign it off and nobody else can fly it until it is.
But
Anybody can put a Red X in the
I'm saying
forms.
that there are, you know, the only person that can say that the airplane is airworthy or not.
After the Red X is put in there. You can write that, nope.
I'm not qualified to put a red X or a dash.
That is as a pilot, you can put a Red X in there and say, I don't want to fly this airplane, I don't think it's safe. Then I determine whether it's grounded or not.
That's true.
I determine, nobody else is going to fly it, but you can ground it. If you feel it's that bad, nobody else can fly it until an A&P or an IA signs off and says, well, he made a mistake or it's good.
I can guarantee you, if an FAA airworthiness guy comes in here and looks at a write-up, and it's on a red diagonal, and there's not a comment from an A&P that says this airplane is flyable in this condition, you're going to take a hit.
I don't believe that. That's delayed description.
Richard, let me just go back.
I know it for a fact because I work with the guys down there.
Damn, I've been doing it for 35 years too, and I've never had that problem, but you know.
Let me just tell you my experiences under Part 135, 141, and that is, I've turned out 2 aircraft because I felt they were unsafe. That's my responsibility as a
pilot,
plane commander and hauling people in the back of that airplane. And they observed what I said. They end up changing the aircraft for me, they end up doing the fix. So as a pilot, I have the option of saying, I don't feel this airplane is airworthy.
I didn't
And when
say
you
that, Bob, and I
that-
agree with you 100%. I can turn down any airplane I want to, but I am not qualified to say in writing that that airplane is not airworthy.
Well, I have written up aircraft that.
Wouldn't you feel pretty bad
with
if,
American Airlines, the way I wrote it up, and I have that right,
And
writing it up.
that's the other thing too, about the way you write it up is very, very important. You can write
flies
it
out
up in
of,
such
flies
a way
out
that
of
there's
pepper out
no
of
way
fly
that it
shape
can be
now.
flyable
Yeah.
until
That's
somebody
true.
does
So
something.
basically, you're grounding the
Or
airplane.
you can write it up and just say, I saw this, and let the mechanic take a look at it. But
We're probably both on the
pilots
same
are not
page.
mechanics unless they got an A&P on top of it.
Under Part 43, Section D, you have options of what you consider airworthy and what you have not considered airworthy.
when you're flying an airplane in the Air Force, you know, I'm sure Colonel Baxter can say, they're flying along and they have a description, my VOR has gone out. That's a diagonal, it's not grounding the airplane. I put a diagonal in there, say VOR number 1 in op. And then I come back, oh, VOR number 1's in op. The next guy that gets in the airplane says VOR number 1's in op, I guess I can't use that. You know, until the A&P fixes it or signs off saying it's good. But, you know, diagonal, you can put any write-up you want in there. Now, if you feel that VOR is a grounding item, then obviously it should be flown, but, you know, why is the VOR grounding? You know, if you find a tire that's too flat, you know, and it's got a ball spot on it, it's out of limits, you know, I can say whether it is or not, but you can put a diagonal on there. I'm gonna go out there and look, or the next guy's gonna say, should I fly this? No, it's not, you shouldn't fly it. I'm gonna red X it, I'll upgrade your diagonal and put a red X on it.
And then likewise, the regulations say if the VOR is in op and you've written it up, it has to be placarded and the circuit breaker has to be pulled.
General aviation, you're absolutely right.
And I can guarantee you on 555 Zulu Zulu, neither VOR works and there's no placard on either one of them.
Has anybody written them up?
There used to be.
There used to
There used to
be,
be
I
placard
know
on
there
it.
was, because I made the things for it.
And if it's in your records, you know, the 781A, and you got a diagonal in there that says that VOR is in op, then you should know, well, I'm not gonna use that VOR. And that's what the 781 is for. We don't put in op on every time they, you know, the pilots write up on the, you know, the Air Force aircraft. We put in the form, 781 forms, and that's the records that show this aircraft has got this VOR bad. You know, now if we're gonna use the 781s, we can go by general aviation, we have to work with both the Air Force and FAA.
That's the key, and that is, we're operating under both rules, Richard. And it's, the one that's gonna be the most restrictive is what we have to operate with. So if the FAA says one thing and the Air Force says, no, we're gonna mark it this way, we'll mark it with what the Air Force says.
We
Because
can-
they're Air Force owned aircraft, they're still in the inventory.
The Air Force,
It's got an N number on it, Bob.
I don't care, it's still in the inventory, you wanna see my emails? It's still, that's why we got the base.
they're Air Force assets,
It's
they're
an
all our Air Force
asset.
assets.
They own the airplanes, I cannot sell it unless I wanna go to jail.
Yeah. But, you know, if you feel it's grounding, my feeling is, you know, we're working off these forms. We gotta use some common sense out here too. You know, we're working with the Air Force, the Air Force will not let you go down from their regulations. They can go up from, or the FAA will not let you go down from their regulations, but you can go up. That's why the FAA or the Air Force does not come under FAA. They come under Air Force because FAA says they're doing over and above what we ask. That's why they got their own, I guess, agency or whatever you call it. We can go over and above, but you can't go below what FAA expects on it. And that's the best I can do for you. I'm not a good speaker, and I can't come up with answers real fast for you, but I'll do my best for you, and I'll try to keep you guys safe. That's all I can ask for with my brother and Bill.
You've answered many phone calls on many a weekend for me, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. All we can do is our best. And we got a good club here, and we got some good people in here, and just take care of the aircraft. And remember, don't drive them like you rented them. Try to fly them like they're your own.
Well, and in many ways it is your own, because as a club, the money that goes into this club is what pays for these airplanes.
801.
Time to go.
Yeah. All right.